is he said, you've got to be so good, people cannot ignore you. And that's something that sort of sits in the back of my mind all the time, is as I'm doing something, am I doing it to the best of my ability? Am I putting in everything?
Top of the morning to you, Sibon Mo in the morning, but I'm joined by our Royal Hustler this morning. She goes by the name of Monique Cloete. Monique is the Managing Director of Liberty Life Namibia. Before joining Liberty in May 2019, Monique was the MD of Specialist Administration Services, SAS, a company she founded in 2013. Prior to that, she was also the Managing Director of Alexandra Forbes Financial Services Namibia. Monique also held other multiple senior roles at the pension administrator, including Chief Operating Officer and Head of Actuarial and Consulting, before entering into her entrepreneurial venture in late 2013. She has over 20 years of experience in the insurance and pension administration industry and holds an MBA from the University of London and BBusiness Science in Finance and Economics from the University of Kaapstad, Cape Town. Monique also holds multiple certificates in long-term insurance, retirement fund administration, and actuarial techniques from the Insurance Institute of South Africa. She has been married for 15 years, has 2 children, aged 13 and 7, spends her space and her spare time making us of the artistic side of her brain by drawing, singing, and being creative. Wow. I have no words. Good morning, Monique. Thank you so much for being our Royal Hustler this morning.
Good morning, Morris. I don't have words either.
Yeah. I'm like, all of that? That's me? Monique, tell us a bit about your childhood, man. How that shaped the person that you are today.
So, Morris, I was born in Cape Town in South Africa. That's where I spent my formative years. That's where I went to high school, where I studied. I grew up in quite a traditional family. So my dad's view was, Mom, you've got to look after my children. I will provide, and that was pretty much it. So it was fairly traditional home, and then they had this youngest kid who sort of came out and started testing the mold of where she fits in society, and is this sort of traditional gender role, is it a thing or not?
Right.
So yeah, that's.
Were you a bit of a hair raiser? If I was to speak to your friends, I'd be like,
if you were to speak to them, they would tell you that my daughter is my payback.
Right. What was, growing up in Cape Town, what were some of your biggest dreams, growing up? What did you want to change in the world?
Morris, I started off, I was probably like grade 6, I think. So what's that, old standard 4, as we knew it. And at that stage, I had a cousin who started studying medicine. That became the dream. So it was about, I'm going to be a doctor. This is the interesting stuff in life. And I carried that all the way through till I got to grade 12. And I thought, is this something you really want to do?
Right.
You do that work shadow piece in grade 11. So I went to a hospital.
You saw blood and you're like, nope, not me, nope.
Actually, it was quite interesting. I saw him do brain surgery. I was in the theater.
Wow.
And then it was, I'm going to be a surgeon, like Grey's Anatomy kind of stuff. Right. But once I got to grade 12, I sort of sat back and said, but is this really, is this really me? I was sitting in South Africa just, at the time of where democracy had just happened.
Right.
And I was sort of saying, but what else is out there? What else can I be doing? So I decided to take the business route. And I think I found my passion once I started working. I don't think I actually found it while I was studying. I don't think I found direction then either. But I found my passion once I actually got involved in the environment.
That's quite interesting, because people generally look at it the other way around. Find something that you're passionate about. Love what you do and all of that. But in your case, you started doing the thing and you're like, wow, okay, yeah, this is where I'm meant to be.
Yeah, so if I had followed my passion when I was in high school, I'd have become an artist, right?
Right.
That was what I was passionate about, was singing and drawing and those kind of things.
Right.
But I think that part of my brain also said, you got to earn a salary one day. You got to afford a house.
Right.
All those things. So can you do something that's going to help you do that too? So that's essentially how I ended up studying what I did.
Right.
But I really found what I enjoyed doing once I got into the working world. That's when I really decided what it was I liked.
That's exceptionally quite profound. When your feet hit the ground every morning, what sets your heart on fire? What motivates you on a daily basis?
Morris, I truly enjoy the fact that I have an impact on somebody's life. So working in a pensions environment, in an insurance environment, I quite link to the adage that in a pension or an insurance environment, we impact people's lives when they're vulnerable. When there's been a death in the family, they've been diagnosed with a dread disease. They've come to retirement, which, contrary to popular opinion, is quite traumatic for people.
Right.
When they've reached those different milestones in life, I can actually have an impact just by what I do. If I do it well and I do it professionally, I can impact somebody's life and somebody's livelihood.
Right.
And that really does make me tick. So I enjoy what I do. And I think the other piece is, for me, it's important that my children have an example. So it's about setting an example for them as well and saying, well, you know, if mom can do this, can I not strive to do the same?
Right.
Particularly, I've got my boy is the eldest, my daughter's the youngest. And for my daughter, I find her questioning, you know, mommy, can a girl do this? And so it's about laying that foundation for her that we don't have to question as women whether we are able. You know, it seems like my son feels entitled to certain things
Right.
that she doesn't. So it's about laying that foundation for her and saying, so you can do anything. Yeah.
Wow. Some of your early influences, along the way, what do those things that just kind of sort of helped you pivot and change and grow and mold and just be?
So if we talk about early influences, I'd probably say my dad. He is, I'm quite like him when I think about work ethic and so forth. And the one thing he always said to us as kids is he said, you've got to be so good, people cannot ignore you. And that's something that sort of sits in the back of my mind all the time, is as I'm doing something, am I doing it to the best of my ability? Am I putting in everything? If I've put in everything and it fails, it's okay. At least I've given it my all.
Right.
If I do half a job and it fails, I cannot be proud of anything. So that's been a strong influence for me. And then more recently, as I look at being in a leadership role and sort of how other women do it, I take a lot of, somebody I'd like to meet is actually Indra Nui, who used to be the CEO of PepsiCo. Coming from a sort of not a privileged background, let me put it that way, and becoming the first woman of color to sit at the top of a Fortune 500 company.
Yeah.
I think she's quite an inspiration for me. So I do follow a lot of her YouTube clips. I've read her book and all that type of thing. So I do take a lot of inspiration from other women who've been in similar. Well, I can't compare my role to PepsiCo, but similar sort of leadership type roles, and that balance between what I do at work and what I do at home. You know, how do I balance what I want to achieve and my ambition to achieve with what I need to provide for my family.
Monique, before we let you go, if we do have people listening, but if people are listening to your story this morning and they're like, wow, okay, I'm a bit inspired right now. What would any life or career advice you'd like to share with our listeners?
Morris, I got a photograph. What do we call them? Memes or pics or something?
Yeah.
From my former manager, or my former line, and it says, "You cannot compete with somebody who never gives up," and I think that's so key. Is often I find we look for excuses as to why we cannot. We've got to find the reasons why we can, and focus on those, and put the right focus on the achievement and what it will look like at the end. So almost calling things from the universe to you, focusing in the right areas and calling those positives. I think that's a key piece, and just never find an excuse. Always find the reason to succeed. That's what I'd like to leave.
Wow. Monique, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Morris.
And go change the world.
I've enjoyed the chat. Thanks very much for having me.
That was Monique Cloete, who has been our Royal Hustler this morning. She is the Managing Director of Liberty Life Namibia currently. Wow, what an interesting conversation.